Welcome, everyone. You're listening to the Elk Junkie podcast. I'm your host, Dave Morris, and I'm here with Lance Garner today. Lance, how's it going this week?
Doing good. I heard you just got back from a sweet fishing trip.
Yeah, my son and I took a trip up to Idaho for a couple days for his spring break from college. He wanted to go fishing, so we ran up to the South Fork for a day, which wasn't the best fishing, and then ran over to the Henrys the next day and slayed it. Between the two of us, I think we caught a little over 40 fish in one day, so it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, you showed me a couple of those pictures and the beautiful fish. That big brown was nice.
Yeah, there's a lot of browns. Not so many browns, a lot of rainbows on the Henrys, but it was definitely freezing cold up there. I hear it's March, but it was still way cold, and the water was icy, but it was a good time.
Yeah, it sounds like fun. I've never fished in the cold like that, so I've never experienced the eyelets freezing up.
Oh, it's fun. It's definitely fun. You got to stop every 10, 20 casts if you're lucky and break off the ice chunks, but you don't want to do it with your bare hands because it really hurts. So you put your gloves on and kind of break it off.
So tell us about this special burger that you were telling me about earlier.
Big Jud's. If you've never eaten at Big Jud's and you're in the Idaho Falls / Rexburg, Ashton area, you got to eat at Big Jud's. They have a 1 pound burger that's massive.
And you told me this is not like 2 or 3 patties. This is one pound.
One patty. Single 1 pound patty with a bun that matches it.
Wow.
It's the size of a dinner plate. And they have a Big Jud challenge, which there's no way I could do it, but you can eat the 1 pound burger and a large fry and a drink within 30 minutes. You get your picture taken and put on the wall. There's quite a bit of people that have done it over the years, obviously, but I could never do that.
Yeah, I couldn't do it.
Sounds
good though.
I like a good burger, and they make a good burger, so it makes for a good place to stop for sure to eat.
I want to go there now just to see it.
It's pretty amazing. The last time we got the Big Jud, we cut it in the 4s and fed our whole family.
Like a pizza.
Yeah. But surprisingly, for how big it is, it tastes good, which is, you wouldn't think something that big would taste good, but it actually tastes really well.
Well, it looked good. That picture you showed me of just the regular burger, that looked really good. And the fries, you were showing me the large fry was huge.
Yeah. Good old Idaho Spuds, fresh cut fries, right there from the farm, probably.
Sounds like I need to go to Jud's.
Yes. Big Jud's. For sure. Well, today in our podcast, we're going to be talking to Lance about his elk hunting experience from 2016, where he was able to harvest his first elk. So this is going to be a pretty awesome episode that we have for you today. What do you think, Lance?
Yeah, I'm excited to share it with everyone. It took me a long time to get my first elk, a lot of years, and so this one was special to me. I've got the elk here in my room, and it means a lot to me. So I'm excited to share the story with the listeners, and hopefully they get something from it.
I think they will.
All right. Yeah, let's talk about my archery elk hunt. Really, for me, I had been hunting since my early 20s, and I'm in my mid-40s now, and probably for about 15 years, I did not shoot an elk.
So did you get a tag every year in that
I got a tag every year. Probably one of the things, though, that I think hindered me was that I was a weekend hunter, and I was just one weekend hunter. So I would go out, we'd go up Friday night, maybe hunt Saturday, typically wouldn't hunt Sunday, and I'd come home on Monday, wouldn't even hunt Monday, maybe Monday morning. And that went on for probably several years. I'd say probably 7 years. That's how I hunted.
Did you just not have the time with work and family and obligations?
That's what it was. Kids were young, work, and so I just didn't dedicate the time and didn't have the vacation time to do it. So, but then slowly I started to transition and hunt more. So I would go for 4 days, 5 days. And so, I started to hunt more over time. And I think that certainly helped. So, here I go about 15 years without harvesting an elk. And you start to wonder at that point, am I cursed? Is this ever going to happen?
Right.
And you really start to wonder. And the hunt that I'm going to describe is when I got my first bull. And that was in 2016. Myself, my brother-in-law, and his niece, and his father all went hunting that year. It was an archery elk hunt here in Utah in the Uintas. I mean,
What part of the UNT?
Yeah, wouldn't you like to know? Based on my success, probably no one cares. But we went up hunting. It was a Friday night, and that Friday night, after a crazy hailstorm, I mean, marble-sized hailstorm, we went out hunting that evening after it stopped. And the four of us went up to this area that we like to call the canyon, and we basically stayed in the bottom of this draw. And that night, we had some elk bugling. My brother-in-law's niece, she actually went after a bull. She wasn't able to get on it. Another bull bugled to the up the hillside from me, and I decided I was going to hunt that. But in the meantime, my brother-in-law's doing all the calling.
Sure.
And so my experience, or at least how I kind of learned or thought how it all worked, was you would, the hunter behind you would be calling, the bull would come in and come past you and you'd shoot it. And that's pretty well how I had hunted all those years, just not very aggressive, kind of passive about it. And same thing that night. I just stayed there waiting. This bull's bugling on the hillside. Instead of closing the gap at all, I just waited and hoping the bull would come in and go towards my brother-in-law who was calling. But never happened.
Okay.
So I was really disappointed that night, and I was frustrated. Went back to camp, frustrated with myself, thinking I got to do something different. This, being passive and just waiting just isn't working for me. So I've got to start being more aggressive. So the next morning when I woke up, we decided we'd go back into the same area, same draw, and
makes sense. Bulls were in there.
Bulls were in there. So we went up into the area, still the same four of us. And we were trying to make a plan. I decided, hey, I'm going to go on this other side of the draw, not where I'd heard the elk that morning, but on the other side where we'd heard another bull even earlier in the day before. And so I started to work my way up the hill. My brother-in-law and his niece stayed down in the bottom, and his dad, they stayed on the bottom of the draw, and they were doing some calling. So I worked my way up the hillside. I decided I was just going to keep working my way up the mountain, and I was sneaking through some lodge poles. The area we hunt, the lodge poles are super thick. I mean, just really thick, and there's a lot of deadfall.
Yeah,
so
it's rough.
It is rough, and it's really difficult to be quiet. That's one thing for sure. So I'm working up the hillside, and long story short, I get up quite a ways, and I see movement. I see tan. I see a body, and sure enough, here's this bull, and he's side hilling, coming to kind of in my direction, but side hilling. And, I'm getting excited, heart's racing. Sometimes I wonder why I even do this, because my heart's just pounding. I feel like I'm going to have a heart attack, right? Every time I see a bull, I think I'm going to have a heart attack. So I'm getting excited. I start to sneak up closer to see how, I needed to kind of close the gap there. And the bull at one point, he was moving across, and there was a point where I thought I had an opening. And so I actually drew back, thinking he might come through this opening, and my bow did not have a good backstop to it, and so it lunged forward on me.
Ooh.
And the bull immediately spun around and looked right at me and just stared in my direction. So I thought, I'm busted. This might be over. But I held still, and next thing I know, my brother-in-law bugles down below me, and this bull rips off a bugle, and so he bugles back. And the bull starts to feed and starts to keep working across this hillside. So I'm like, sweet, I'm not busted. This still might happen. And so he keeps working across the hill, and I get out my rangefinder, and I ranged a tree that looked about in the right area he was coming across, and it was 30 yards. Well, as he came across, he was actually higher, and it looked to me like he was probably about 40 yards. So I figured, okay, I'll put my 40-yard pin on him. I'll wait for him to come through this opening. And once again, it's super thick. I mean, the lodge poles are really thick. If anyone's ever hunted these thick lodge poles, they know if you move just a little bit, the view just changes drastically. And so I drew back. The bull came through this window, and I kid you not, it's about 1 foot window is all it was, going through these trees. The nice thing about that was I knew if I missed left or right, I was going to hit a tree. I wasn't going to hit a bull and wound it.
Yeah.
So
that's a good point.
And it actually kind of gave me a good view, something to really focus on. So I put my 40-yard pin on him, and he was moving super slow, so there was no need to mew, cow call to stop him. And as soon as he got in that little window, I let the arrow fly, and I heard the smack. Now, I wasn't 100% sure. I could not see the arrow where it hit.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, uh-oh, did I hit a tree? Because he immediately, kind of lunged. So I wasn't sure if I hit the tree or him. And so he lunged, but then he just started walking, side hilling still, but kind of up the hill. So I hurried and knocked another arrow and started to creep forward. But as I'm watching him, all of a sudden he starts rocking,
doing the death wobble.
The death wobble, and he tumbles over.
So how far did he go from the shot to?
So he only went 13 yards.
13 yards.
Yeah, I marked the location where I shot. I went up to where I'd actually shot him, marked that, and then and had walked over, and he had gone 13 yards is all from that spot that I had shot him.
So what was your estimation correct then, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
Your yardage?
The yardage turned out great. I mean, it was a super clean shot. It went all the way through him and actually stuck into a log that was on the ground, and that arrow looked pristine. I mean, I think even the blades looked like they were almost just still brand new. I mean,
wow.
So it
just
went right
zipped
through.
him real quick.
I assumed it was a heart shot. I mean, because I walked over to him, and there's just blood everywhere. He died instantly.
Wow.
You know, there was no suffering at all. So I was really pleased with that. But yeah, when he dropped, literally, I dropped. I got emotional.
I bet.
I mean, so here you've hunted for 15 plus years, never got a bull, and you start to wonder if, this just ain't for me. What's going on here, And so, I got emotional. I had tears. I went up to the bull and was just ecstatic, but, emotional. I remember I took a picture, and then I walked over, saw the arrow where it was, and anyways, at that point, usually what we do as a hunting group, we all know that if someone cow calls 3 times quickly, that means come here.
Yeah. And
so I started doing the 3 cow call sequence quickly, trying to let my brother-in-law and everyone else in the party know that I'd shot something.
Yeah.
And I waited probably good half hour. Nobody's coming.
They're like, screw you.
So I'm like, where is everybody? So I'm like, well, I guess I got to hike down. So I hike down the hill, and I get down into the draw where they're at. And I remember my brother-in-law, he's looking at me, and he's got that look like, we got skunked again. He's just got this disappointed look on his face. And so I as I keep getting closer to him, he notices I'm missing an arrow, and he's like, what? You're missing an arrow? And that's when I, raised my hand. Yes, I got one. So he was all excited. We hugged. His niece gave me a hug. We were all really stoked about it. And the funny thing was, afterwards, I'd asked him, I said, well, did you guys hear the 3 cow call sequence? Let you know. And they're like, well, we heard it, but
we didn't believe it because you never got one in 15 years.
Yeah, probably exactly right. So they thought nothing of it. But
oh, that's funny.
So anyways, we went back to camp, got all the stuff, and hiked back up and quartered out the elk and brought it back. Where we typically hunt, we're not going out all day. I mean, you can go out all day, but we're not bringing like our pack frames or have the type of pack where you're packing the meat typically. And we just go back to camp and get our stuff. So that's what we did. And it was a lot of fun. That's the bull that you see behind me hanging here on the wall. And I'll be honest, I don't know that I'll ever get another elk. I don't care how big it is. I don't know if I'll ever shoot another elk that will mean more to me than this one did.
Than the first one.
Yeah. I mean, it was just so emotional, so much like stress, just weight off my back to finally get one. And I credit it to a couple of things. One was just finally being aggressive, not just waiting for the bull to come to me, being more aggressive. Obviously, you don't want to be too aggressive.
Right.
But I being aggressive was important. And honestly, I felt like it was a real blessing. I mean, it really was. I remember that morning, I woke up like at 4 a.m, got all ready. I'm looking outside and no one else is up. So I'm thinking, well, what am I going to do? And I had some church duties I had to do. So I took care of those, and I thought, well, maybe I'll be blessed for this today.
There you go.
So went hunting, and I felt really blessed by getting that bull. So it all worked out great. It really did. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So what's your go-to meal that you prepared with your elk meat?
Ooh, go-to meal? Boy, I love making jerky. We really like to make jerky, so we'll have a lot of burger made up, and then we'll have jerky made out of it. So we'll make it ourselves.
Yeah. What's your favorite ingredient flavored
we
jerky or whatever?
Usually just a teriyaki.
Okay.
Yeah, just usually like teriyaki. That tastes pretty good. So.
Yeah, I've tried a few of them over the years, and that Lance prepared, and they're quite delicious, I would have to say.
My family loves it, so I figure if if they love it, it must be pretty good. So
yeah, you always try to sneak in that wild meat into your meals and surprise them and tell them afterwards is what I like to do myself.
It never goes over well when you tell them afterwards.
I think the worst one that I ever had on that is we made Hawaiian haystacks, and if you don't know what those are, that's just like a cream sauce with meat, usually chicken in it.
Usually chicken, right?
Yeah, and I'd put some pheasant in with some of it for my family that was coming over for dinner, and I thought I got all the BBs out of it. And, I didn't tell them what they were eating, and then all of a sudden my brother-in-law was like,
oh, no.
Bit down, he spits out a BB, and he's like, what is in this? I was like, oh, it's pheasant. It's like, I just ate a BB. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. So ever since then, I've made sure that I get all the BBs out before I try
Did they care that it was pheasant versus chicken?
No, they didn't.
So speaking of BBs, my father-in-law, just an awesome guy, I shot a turkey, was it about a year ago? Same thing. Thought I got all the BBs out.
Yep.
And gave him some of the turkey breast. Well, he bit down on it, and he took a chunk out of his tooth.
Oh!
He chipped his tooth big time. He had to go in and get it fixed. I felt terrible.
Oh, shoot. That is bad.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
So I'm real hesitant now to give any of the meat away that I've shot with a shotgun. So.
Yeah, unless you run it over with a metal detector and make sure it doesn't shoot.
There you go. Maybe we need to invest in or invent a food metal detector.
Wild game food metal detector for all of your wild game needs.
Yeah, there you go. Might be a moneymaker. So.
Well, that story was awesome, Lance. I know it's definitely a motivation to me. I personally have not killed an elk yet, even though I'm late to this game, I kind of think. But I enjoy it, and I enjoy the experience of figuring out, like you said, your process that you've gone through to figure out how to be a successful elk hunter. And I think all of us can learn from other people's successes and failures, and I think that's the key, is just to try to figure it out. And obviously you've figured it out. I mean, since then you've killed.
Well, I've killed a couple elk.
Right.
Lots of opportunities though. Since then, I can tell you that since I've changed to being more aggressive, it's just been a huge game changer for me. Mm-hmm. I'm not overly aggressive, but I do, go after the elk, and I have created so many more opportunities. Just even the last 2 or 3 years, I mean, so many opportunities. I think it was 2 years ago, I probably had 8 opportunities that just didn't work out for one reason or another. Usually it was because of thermals or wind that just blew it for me. But ever since that, I just kind of changed my mentality and kind of almost, I guess I'd call it a killer mentality. It's just really changed things drastically for me. And obviously putting more time in helped. Yeah. Those first few years, just weekend just wasn't cutting it. But
weekend warriors are hard. I mean, they're successful every once in a while, but not.
Yeah, I really feel for the guys that can only go out for a weekend here and there. It'd be tough.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's totally true.
Yeah. So yeah, I'd say if if anyone's struggling and they feel like they're being too passive, maybe try being a little bit more aggressive. But
I think that's a good tactic.
Yeah.
Tactic. I can't even say that. Sweet. Well, thanks for your story.
Yeah. This is our second episode of Elk Junkie, and I think, as we just pointed out, we're not the experts,
right?
But that's why we wanted to do this show, Elk Junkie, because we wanted to just show our enthusiasm for it, and our passion for it. Just because we haven't been that successful or haven't done it that long doesn't mean you can't be passionate about it. And that goes for everyone listening out there. Don't feel like because you haven't been successful, you're just starting out or whatnot, that you can't, be an elk junkie. You can't be someone who just is passionate about it and just loves it.
Yep.
You have every right to it as well. So anyways, that's why we're doing it. And this is our second episode, and we plan to continue to do these kinds of things and interview people. And that's one of the big things. We want to interview the everyday hunter, because we know that the everyday hunter has lots of stories that they can share with all of us, and we want to hear from them. So
Yeah, even if you're not willing to talk to us on the phone or in person, I mean, if you want to send us your story via email, and we're more than happy just to read it, just to get your story out there is something that we would be willing to do.
yeah, absolutely.
What is your favorite camouflage pattern or company that makes camouflage?
My favorite camo pattern is the Cryptic Mandrake. It's kind of the green color.
Yeah.
But that thing it just blends so well. It's almost like chameleon. You can be like in the trees and it's like changes to one color, and you go into another place and it seems like it changes to more of a brown. It's really cool camo. But I really love that camo pattern, especially like I was talking about in the lodge poles. It is so hard to see me. And I've seen other people wear it. I think my brother-in-law had a couple of articles of clothing in it, and it was just incredible how it broke him up. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of people struggle to see me or find me in those lodge poles when I'm wearing that camo. So I absolutely love the Mandrake Cryptic camo. I haven't tried a lot of other ones, so I'm sure they're all awesome. They all break up well, but that's just the one I really enjoyed having, and so...
Nice.
Yeah.
I know. I agree. I like the look of it. It looks good too. It's not just functional, but it looks good.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. Besides your weapon of choice, whether that's a bow or rifle, what is the one item that you must have with you in your pack at all times?
Got to have my cell phone.
Okay.
So cell phone for navigation, and I like taking photos.
Yeah.
So I like taking photos, and so that's probably one thing I would really hate to go without. Obviously, there's some places that cell phone's probably not going to do you a whole lot of good. Boy, that's tough though. Got to have food, got to have my snacks, got to have my protein bars, all that good stuff. Because I like to snack and eat while I'm out. So.
Yeah, I've noticed that over the years. I always look over and I'm like, man, I need some of those snacks. My snack bag is probably just not even half of a quart-sized bag, and I look over and Lance pulls out like a gallon-sized bag of snacks.
My brother-in-law, every time I pull out my snacks, he's like, man, where are you getting this stuff? And how come you don't tell me about it? And so I've always got something unique and really tasty in there. So
you got to have that, though, when you're on the mountain. Keep yourself motivated and going, and
that's right.
So on and so forth.
Yep. You can only eat so many almonds or nuts or peanut butter and all the other good. You got to have some goodies. So.
Well, yeah, I agree. What is your go-to goodie then? Speaking of which, if you were going to throw a snack in there besides your protein bar,
man, that's tough. I like a trail mix. So here's what I'll do. I'll usually make my own trail mix. I'll put in there chocolate almonds. I'll get those usually from Costco.
The chocolate-covered almonds.
Yep, chocolate-covered almonds.
Milk chocolate ones.
Yep,
of course.
And I do like to put in some peanut M&Ms in the mix. I like the yogurt pretzels, the kind of the vanilla yogurt pretzels. Those are really good in there. I add dried cranberries.
Have you ever tried the dried cran cherries?
They good?
Way good. I'll switch you over to that this year.
Okay. That sounds good. So I always add those. Boy, what else do I usually like to have in there? Those are like some of the main things I really like to have in my trail mix.
Chocolate, yogurt.
Yeah.
Okay. I got it. You got to have the sweets.
I got to have the sweets. The cranberries are probably the only thing in there that's probably really good. Sometimes I like the yogurt cranberries, but yeah.
Yeah, I think I personally like making my own trail mix as well, because it's just, I'm not a fan of a lot of things that come in the store-bought.
Yeah.
And if you can put your stuff in there that you want to eat, then you'll actually eat it.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot. I love pineapple chunks. Lots of sugar coating.
Those sugar-coated, crustable pineapple chunks.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Got to add those to it. So
I feel you on that one. Okay. Final question for you. What advice would you give to a new hunter in the industry?
Ooh, a new hunter. I already talked about being aggressive, and you don't want to be overly aggressive. You got to be smart about it. You got to be patient. But the one thing I have learned is just how important it is to watch the thermals and the wind. Like I'd mentioned a couple years ago, I had probably 8 opportunities, and every one of them was blown by thermals. Every single one of them. And there were a couple of those opportunities that I was so confident that bull was coming right past me, and then he would stop and he would circle me and wind me, and then that was it. It was just over. And I had one instance too where I had got between a cow and a bull, and I thought, well, this is perfect. I'm going to draw this bull back to the cow. And so I'm sitting in this, behind this tree, and the bull's bugling, and I'm thinking he's coming. The wind's perfect. It's blowing away from him, and then it just switched, and it blew right at him, and he shut right up. That was the end of it. Never heard him again. So, yeah, I think one piece of advice is really pay close attention to the thermals and to the wind.
I think that's a great advice.
Well, guess we'll wrap this one up.
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. We'll see everyone.
Have a good week.